Sri Jairam Ramesh ji.
Mr. Vice Chairman, sir. Sir, this is a discussion not on the budget, not on the economy, but on the finance bill. And I will be confining my comments only to the clauses that are present in this finance bill. But before I start, sir, I cannot compete with Mr. Venkaiah Naidu in his ability in poetry or in alliteration.
He is not here.
But it seems to me, drawing a leaf from Mr. Venkaiah Naidu's book, that this finance bill is a bitter pill which shows the finance minister's skill to go in for the kill. And he has really gone in for the kill in this finance bill. Sir, we have a former finance minister who presented 6 budgets. We have a former finance minister who presented 8 budgets. Between the two, they presented 14 budgets. But they also presented finance bills. But this finance bill is extraordinary in scope, extraordinary in substance, and extraordinary in the manner of its presentation. And I want to take only 5 clauses in the next 10 minutes or so in this bill to show how the finance minister has really made a serious effort to finish off the spirit of democratic discourse, to finish off the spirit of parliamentary democracy, to not only reduce the Rajya Sabha to irrelevance, but also to reduce the Lok Sabha to complete irrelevance. Sir, first I want to talk about clause 29, which is section 56 in the finance bill. I want to talk about clause 50, which is section 132. I want to talk about clause 154, which refers to the Companies Act. I want to talk about part 14 of the finance bill, and I'll say something on clause 56 of the finance bill. So first, clause 29, section 56. In fact, sir, this was one clause which I actually welcomed, because the finance minister, in the original finance bill that he presented, and those of us who read finance bills with minute detail will recognize that what the finance minister did in the original finance bill was to introduce a pseudo inheritance tax. Because what he said was that transfer of assets to all private trusts will come under the ambit of taxation. Now we know in this country that private trusts are an instrument of transferring assets to succeeding generations. And I actually welcomed this, because ever since the abolition of estate duty in 1985, there has been a growing realization that India needs to move towards an inheritance tax. The number of millionaires, billionaires is increasing, inequality is increasing just as poverty is declining, and that India, like most countries of the world, to address inequality must introduce an inheritance tax. Now, the finance minister introduced a pseudo inheritance tax. But what does he do in the amended finance bill? He removes it and he says transfer of assets to relatives is exempt. So the inheritance tax is gone out of the window. And I would appeal to the finance minister that he revisit this, and maybe in succeeding budgets next year, he revisit this and actually get our country on the path of an inheritance tax. So the second point, clause 50, section 132 has been condemned by everybody. But I want to condemn it for one particular reason alone, which is that in 2012, when the Vodafone tax decision was taken, the leader of the opposition, who is now the leader of the House, called it tax terrorism. So section 132 is tax terrorism to the power of 10. If Vodafone was tax terrorism, Section 132 is tax jihad, because what you have done is removed reason to believe, you have removed reason to suspect, and given untrammeled powers to a tax bureaucracy and a tax administration whose credibility is suspect in the eyes of the public. And if I were to read all the statements that the finance minister said, sir, in 2014, after he became finance minister and he presented the budget, Mr. Jaitley said that his government would not ordinarily bring about any change retrospectively which creates a fresh liability. He's gone back on the very words that he pronounced in 2014. So I would like to know from the Honorable Finance Minister, what is his compulsion to go back to October 1975 and introduce this draconian section in the Income Tax Act? 1962. Is it because there are 25,000 cases pending in the High Court? Is it because there are 4,500 cases pending in the Supreme Court? Is this a way of accelerating decision making on pending direct tax cases? But sir, in the name of faster decision making, I feel, and I think everybody in this house will agree, even the Treasury benches, many people in the Treasury benches have told me privately that this is something that is completely unacceptable in a modern, civilized, liberal democracy which we claim to be. Sir, my third point is on Clause 154, which is on amendments to the Companies Act. And this has been commented upon by Mr. Kapil Sibal, Mr. Sitaram Yechuri, and said that the Companies Act has now been changed, has been amended to make for anonymous donations from corporates and remove the cap on corporates. Now, sir, I'm not repeating those points, but the Finance Minister in that House, as well as in his reply to the debate on the budget, drew reference to the Manmohan Singh Committee on Party Finances. And I want to say something on the Manmohan Singh Committee on Party Finances, a copy of which I have. Dr. Manmohan Singh headed this committee in 2001. Mr. Motilal Vora was a member. Mr. Oscar Fernandez was a member. And I happen to be associated with this committee. Now, the Finance Minister has quoted selectively. So the Finance Minister is a master of selective quotation, and he's a master of spin. I can't compete with that. But let me quote from you what the Manmohan Singh Committee actually said in its report. What the Manmohan Singh Committee said is that any company donation to a political party should be in consonance with the provisions of the Companies Act at that point of time. And at that point of time, the Companies Act had a provision which said there was a cap of 5% on net profits over the last 3 years. At no point of time did the Manmohan Singh Committee say, remove the cap. At no point of time did the Manmohan Singh Committee say that you make company donations completely anonymous. In fact, the Manmohan Singh Committee report goes on to say that all payments must be by check, which make automatically people will know who has given how much money, and nowhere in this committee's report is there any reference to a modification in the Companies Act as the Finance Minister has led us to believe. So in this connection, I want to just take 1 or 2 minutes. On the 16th of August 1961, Mr. J.R.D. Tata, the chairman of the Tata Group, writes a letter to the then Prime Minister, Mr. Jawaharlal Nehru. And he starts this letter by saying, "My dear Jawaharlal, because of my lifelong friendship, I feel I must write to you about a decision we have recently taken in Tatas, which I do not want to reach you from outside sources. And this letter is a letter which says that the Tatas are going to fund the Swatantra Party in addition to funding the Congress Party. This is a long 3-page letter, and he says, "I'm sorry to have written at such length, knowing how busy you are, but I am anxious that there should be no misunderstanding in your mind as to our views and motives. Please do not trouble to reply to this letter. I only seek your understanding." This letter was to tell the Prime Minister transparently, openly, that the House of Tatas want to fund the Swatantra Party along with funding the Congress Party. This is all by check. The Prime Minister writes to Mr. J.R.D. Tata 2 days later, "I have your letter of 16th of August. Thank you for your long letter to tell me what you have decided and for the reasons for it. You are completely free to help in any way you like the Swatantra Party." This is the Prime Minister of India in correspondence with a leading industrialist of India on company funding of political parties. This is what we are going to end with, what we are going to approve through this finance bill. By removing the cap, by introducing the element of anonymity, you're going against the very spirit of corporate funding, so beautifully exemplified by Mr. Tata and by Mr. Nehru almost 50 years ago. So,
the time is
2
over,
points and I'm done.
Mr.
Part
Ramesh.
14. Part 14. Everybody has said about Part 14. Every act, conceivable act, which the government was uncomfortable with, has been tampered with. So I had the privilege of moving the National Green Tribunal Act in this House 7 years ago. And that National Green Tribunal Act has been completely emasculated through the finance bill. What prevented the government from coming with an amendment to the National Green Tribunal Act, having a debate, and seeing whether it could pass? They would have passed those amendments in the Lok Sabha. They may or may not have passed the amendments in the Rajya Sabha, but there would have been a debate. But they have used the route of the finance bill to completely emasculate the National Green Tribunal. So for appointing the chairman of the National Green Tribunal, the Prime Minister sent me, the then Prime Minister sent me to meet the Chief Justice of India. And I called on the Chief Justice of India, respecting the fact that judicial members in tribunals must be appointed in consultation with the judiciary. That basic principle has been abandoned in Part 14. And this is not just on the National Green Tribunal Act. You take any act, as I said, any act, any body, any law which the government has found uncomfortable has been tampered with through Part 14. I wish the amendments had been brought through normal circumstances, through normal procedures. A debate would have taken place. And so, worse, this is an afterthought. This is after the finance bill had been introduced. This is not as if it was there in the original finance bill. This is an afterthought from the 1st of February to the 24th or 25th of March. So finally, Clause 56. We are going to have a debate on Aadhaar after this. I'm not going to speak much on Aadhaar, but I have to congratulate the Finance Minister because he has forced me to do something which I had said I would never do, which is actually get an Aadhaar number. Because I've had to get an Aadhaar number because now Aadhaar is compulsory for filing your income tax returns. There are over 3 crore PAN cards. There are over 3 crore, sorry, not PAN card, there are over 3 crore income tax SSCs, and there are over 17 crore PAN cards. Now, how many of these are duplicates? How many of these are fake? That you are making Aadhaar compulsory even for filing tax returns. And I can do no better, sir, than to bring to the Finance Minister's attention not what I am saying, not what civil society activists are saying, not what liberals are saying, but what a magazine which is fully in consonance with the ruling party's philosophy, the Swarajya magazine, which is published out of Chennai, started by the great Mr. C. Rajagopalachari. And what is the article that has appeared in the latest issue of Swarajya? Aadhaar overreach, making it a must for PAN will leave millions vulnerable. भूपिंदर जी, ये पढ़िए. ये जॉन रेस नहीं कह रहे हैं, ये कोई लिबरल नहीं कह रहा है, ये आप ही का वक्ता जो है स्वराज्य मैगजीन जो हर हफ्ता आपका समर्थन करता है, वो ही कह रहा है कि दिस इज
two more speakers from your party, Mr. Jairam Ramesh, please conclude.
सही कहा आपने अश्विनी भाई जी. We started Aadhaar, but we started Aadhaar for ensuring better delivery of social services, for eliminating fake identities, for eliminating duplicate identities. And sir, I'll have more scope to discuss this later on, but the fact is just this morning, as Mr. Digvijay Singh pointed out, the headlines are how Mahendra Singh Dhoni's wife is very upset with the office of the Minister for Information Technology because Mr. Dhoni's Aadhaar details are all available today on the internet.
Thank you.
So that is something that we want to avoid. This is something that we want to ensure. But I feel that by introducing Aadhaar in a whole set of activities unrelated to the purpose of Aadhaar, for which Aadhaar was originally conceived by the Finance Minister then and the Prime Minister then, has been completely lost. So, sir, in summary, may I say that this is not a finance bill. This is something more than a finance bill. This is actually an agenda for reducing Parliament to complete irrelevance, both the houses. This is an exercise in, when Mr. Chidambaram was the finance minister, he introduced a tax called fringe benefit tax, and it used to be called FBT. So this finance bill is also an FBT. It's finance bill terrorism. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Mr.